All right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center for your Thursday morning. A couple of different accidents to report. One at Garner's Ferry Road and Hallbrook. Another one at Sunset and Highway 12. And then one at Woodtrail and Boy Scout Road. Today it's going to be hot again, partly cloudy with high of 95. Tomorrow, a mix of clouds and sunshine with chance of afternoon thunderstorms at a high of 93. Same exact forecast as well for this weekend. That's traffic and weather from Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the early game. Nine o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here. Hopefully everybody's in good shape after those storms last night. We were just talking about that before we came on here. You never say it comes out of nowhere because it's the summertime and we should just kind of expect those things. But I like you, was just kind of chilling, and then boom, here comes thunder and wind and rain and lightning and all these things, and I'm worrying about my power going out, and yeah, quite a night.
It was just strange, man. I was telling you right before we came in to do this, it was perfectly fine outside. And again, it was extremely hot yesterday. Like, being back here for the first time, for the first day after getting back from Arizona, it was blistering hot. I think it was 100 all day. I mean, it was awful outside. But then, yeah, getting tonight, my power went out for like 5 minutes while watching the NBA draft, and then it started working again, but it was strange. And then I didn't go outside to really see it, so I don't really know how bad it was, but just hearing the rain come down from my apartment building, it was definitely not good.
By the way, I don't know why we have a difference between actual temperature and feels like temperature. If it feels like it's 105 degrees, why can't we just say it's 105 degrees? I don't get why there's two differences here.
I don't understand it either. It felt awful outside yesterday, man. Like, it's just, I don't know how you could do it. You probably, if you're going to do anything outside, just get it done in the morning. That's the only solution to this. And even then,
sure,
even walking outside this morning, it was still very hot out and probably only 80 degrees.
Yep. Welcome to summertime in the South.
Yeah.
I feel like most days you only have to look at the weather because, it's going to be hot and there's a chance for rain late in the afternoon. That pretty much sums it up just about every single day, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
So hopefully everybody's okay with that. Didn't see, any damage or trees down or anything driving in. So I think for the most part, we ended up okay. Hopefully you got power and all that kind of stuff. Last night was the NBA draft, and we'll get into what happened for Colin Murray-Boyles in just a second, but it is 9 o'clock. We, as always, got to kick things off with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm.
Sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. We go to the NBA draft last night, where with the 9th pick, this happened.
With the 9th pick in the 2025 NBA draft, the Toronto Raptors select Colin Murray-Boyles from the University of South Carolina.
You see the emotions there. His girlfriend right next to him in the red dress. That is Chloe Kitts, 6'2" starting forward at South Carolina, the SEC tournament MVP, and with his family as well.
Colin Murray-Boyles heading up north of the border to the Toronto Raptors with a 9th overall pick. He becomes the first lottery pick in South Carolina Gamecocks program history. I know when we kind of looked at the mock drafts, 10 was about the highest that I saw him go. You know, some people had him 15th, 17th, kind of in that middle ground of the first round. So 9th, maybe even a little bit of a surprise by going that high.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit surprised that he went to Toronto. I thought maybe just based on, you know, seeing some things online and whatnot, that maybe he'd go to the Bulls or maybe even like a team like Houston or something. But honestly, when you think about it and what the Raptors are, because look, they're a franchise that's not too far removed from winning an NBA title.
Yeah, they're a franchise that's trying.
Yes,
right?
yes, they're trying to get back to that level they were when they had Kawhi Leonard and they won the title in 2019. But honestly, I mean, you look at their defensive numbers; they were not very good defensively last year. They were a bottom tier defense in the NBA, and bringing in a guy like CMB makes a lot of sense from that standpoint because you can argue he's the best defensive player in the draft. So good move on their part, and for him to go top 10, that's it's going to be nice for him.
Yeah, kind of reading into what the Raptors were looking to do, they really wanted to build up their front court, which obviously Conor Ball satisfies. Like you said, need to get better on defense, which he's really good at. You know, we'll see his scoring a little bit, especially the three-pointer that we talked about a little bit yesterday. So it's an opportunity. He's going to go out there and play with some, high-level guys, R.J. Barrett, Grady Dick, who've come out in the past couple of years. They're, all things considered, a relatively young team. Garrett Temple is the old man of this team. He's almost 40 years old, but for the most part, this is a relatively young squad that I think CMB will hopefully fit in pretty nicely with.
Yeah, and I wonder, you mentioned the young part about it. I do wonder how or what his role is going to be right off the bat, because you have Scotty Barnes, who plays the 4, and you have, Jacob Poltel, who plays the 5. So I imagine CMB probably comes off the bench to start his career, but then again, you have R.J. Barrett at the 3. You have Brandon Ingram at the 2. I just kind of wonder how CMB fits in, but there's going to be a role for him because of what he can do defensively. And again, he mentioned it last night on, talking in one of those interviews after being drafted. He's got to be able to develop that shot, right? Yep. It's something that we've heard so much about since his freshman year at South Carolina, where he was great in every other aspect but didn't have that three-point shot. If he can just slightly get it going. We saw tidbits of it kind of at the end of the year, the SEC tournament, where he knocked down a pair of threes to open that first-round game against Arkansas in the SEC tournament. If he can find that stroke consistently, at least a little bit, it's going to be a real game changer for him just because of what else he's able to do. We know he can drive. We know he can defend. But having that little outside shot, even maybe a mid-range shot, would make a world of difference.
Yeah, and again, you just hope they give him the ample time to get in there and develop and obviously blossom into a successful NBA player. And looking at this right now, speaking of three-point attempts, the Raptors were towards the bottom of the league last year when it came to attempts per game. So that's something the team as a whole obviously going to try and get better with, and we'll see if Conor Bulls can certainly be a part of that. But exciting nonetheless to obviously see a guy from South Carolina go that high. And it's kind of weird. I almost feel like, watching the interviews in him last night, I feel like we barely heard him talk here, right? I know he did some post-game stuff after games and whatnot, but he was not like the most outspoken guy. He just kind of went about his business. We never heard about any issues in the locker room or at practice or anything like that. And for all accounts, it seems like he just was a good dude, put his head down, did his work, and hopefully that translates well to the NBA.
Yeah, no, it was kind of, honestly, I'm listening to him talk last night. I'm kind of like, he never talks like this at South Carolina. Like, he was very, I don't know how to put it, very, I don't want to say reserved, because he could definitely give you a good quote,
sure,
and whatnot. But he knows the right things to say and all that sort of stuff. And obviously last night, the big thing that happened last night, him dropping I think it was an F-bomb when he.
Yes, he did mouth it. We couldn't hear it, but he did mouth it.
Yes, he did mouth it.
The question became, was he just surprised or was he upset at the fact that he had to go to Toronto? Of course, Twitter ran with it that, hell, you get drafted by Toronto and you're dropping an F-bomb because you don't want to go there. He did on NBA TV after the fact try and clarify what exactly happened there.
WTF for sure. WTF all the way till my name got called. Man, it was crazy. But geez, I almost shed a tear. But I try to keep my composure, but you know, it's surreal. You know, like I dreamed of this when I was a kid. Like, you never know you're gonna be there till you're there, for real. So it's like, it's crazy.
Again, when you look at all the draft projections, nobody had him going as high as 9. So I think there could genuinely be a piece of surprise, like, oh, bleep, I can't believe I just went this high. Even if he was upset with going to Toronto, that was the right answer to give after the fact. Like, you don't want to start off on the foot of, yeah, I was kind of upset that I have to go to Toronto.
I mean, it didn't look like he was upset. I mean, that's just my take. And I'm watching the video back of him saying it, you know, multiple times last night, and I'm just like, he looks like a guy that's kind of like relieved, you know, like man, like, you know, like it didn't look like he was like pissed. I mean, he was smiling and, you know, laughing and stuff. So
I think about it like this, and look, you know, if you're in the green room, you're going to be going to the, go in the first round. You can prepare yourself for that moment mentally as much as possible. When you actually hear your name get called, and when you're walking up to the stage to shake hands with Adam Silver and put on the hat of whatever team to draft you, I think there's a deeper reality that sets in that is kind of like that, oh, bleep, this actually just happened type of thing.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned it before, and I think it's the same thing for him. He probably wasn't expecting to go top 10 or this early. You know, I think we were expecting maybe mid, you know, teens, first round pick, and he ended up going number 10 or number 9 to the Raptors. So he definitely got in that top 10 there.
How different will life be in Canada for him? It's gonna be cold, obviously.
Well, he'll have.
He did spend some time in Utah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is true. And as we all know, it could get pretty cold out there. And look, Toronto's going to be completely different because it's its own country and stuff. So it's going to be probably a change of pace. He said yesterday he already has his passport and stuff, so he's ready. And it was funny. I was listening to one of those interviews he was doing, and he was saying that the first thing he's going to do is post on his Instagram story and tag Drake in it. And I think that'll be kind of funny for him and whatnot. And hopefully Drake does get back to him. But yeah, it'll be a different change of pace for him, being from Colombia and all that.
You think he's ever tried poutine?
Probably not. I do wonder. I doubt it. I feel like most people. Do most people know what poutine is, though?
I feel like most people know, but it's not something that's prevalently available. You can find it in some place, or like a modified version of it, but like Canada way with gravy and cheese curds and all that kind of stuff. Like, it sounds good.
I've never seen it here.
I could see the appeal, but for whatever reason, it's not trickled down, at least this far in the States.
Well, hopefully someone, whether it's a Raptors media member or just whoever, gets to interview him, just ask him, are you going to try poutine?
So the question becomes of, okay, when he and Chloe want to spend time together now, is he flying down here? Is she flying up to Canada, at least for another year that she's going to be in Colombia playing for the Gamecocks? Like, how's that going to work?
That's a good question. Again, you got to have a passport. I'm assuming you got to go through customs to get.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like that's a when you're flying between countries.
And I can understand. Going back to the whole F-bomb thing, if he were actually mad about going to Toronto, I guess I could understand it from that standpoint of it's a bit more of a hassle, I would say, compared to playing in the States. Yep. Then again, even as an NBA player, you got to go to Toronto at some point during the season.
That's true.
I mean, it happens.
By the way, he did the smart thing. I believe he hugged a mom first after getting drafted, then made his way around to Chloe because, as we've seen many times in the NBA draft or the NFL draft, when it goes like girlfriend first, mom's usually pretty upset about that. So I think he made the right choice in the way he distributed his hugs last night.
Absolutely. There has to be a strategy to it. You got to give your parents the hugs first and then get to everyone else after.
Did you see Chloe put the hat on?
I did.
And the attempt was there, but it wasn't going to fit over because she had her hair like done up in the back.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I like the attempt, but that hat wasn't staying on.
And then I like seeing CMB put the hat on. I always like seeing the guys that try to put the hat on, and they had that really like big hair that just like.
Because his, I don't even know what you call it.
It's kind of like that braid. I don't know what it is.
It's like a tight braid, so it sits right like firm on his head. So yeah, the hat it didn't look like it fit him too well either.
No, and again, it's a snapback, so it should one size fits all. So,
But that's one thing you don't really see is like them guys adjusting it. Like they'll just pat it, put it on, and whether it's hanging off the side of the head or whatever, they go and take the picture with Adam Silver.
It's just it's the funniest thing when guys do that. But
It certainly is. Well, we'll get into some more NBA draft stuff coming up next as some fans of franchises that usually suck watching a draft like last night as well. It is the Extra Point, Tyra Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday here on The Game.
Dallas Mavericks select Cooper Flagg from Duke University.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Sorry, Ed and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on the Game, breaking down last night's NBA draft. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, Cooper Flagg does indeed go number 1 overall to the Dallas Mavericks. They didn't screw it up. I did find it funny that Nico Harrison, after the fact, when we're talking about drafting Cooper Flagg, they're like, oh, it's a once-in-a-lifetime type of talent. It's like, well, you kind of had what people thought was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of talent, and you shipped him off to L.A., but whatever. Well, you better hope this works, or your butt's on the line, buddy.
Yeah, I think they had the, best player with Luka Doncic, and that was their star. I mean, they had him for years and years and years, and then, of course, they trade him, and then they get lucky here in the lottery and get the number 1 overall pick. I love the way that worked out, to where you get rewarded for trading your franchise. I think you could argue Luka could have been the franchise's best player other than Dirk Nowitzki. Like, I think you could argue if he stayed in Dallas for the rest of his career, he's probably the greatest Maverick of all time.
Sure.
But, of course, did not work out that way.
Did you hear the person yell, Dallas is rigged, when Silver was walking up to the stage for the first time?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think it is, honestly. I think you can't tell me there's no way. I know the lottery is you put the balls in the.
Yeah, we don't do frozen envelopes anymore.
Yeah, like, again, there's none of that. So I get it. It's basically just random luck, I guess. But it's just very convenient that the Mavericks got the first pick after trading away the craziest trade I think we've ever seen in sports, probably.
Yeah, so we'll see if he lives up to the billing. Again, he's being positioned as, in a lot of ways, LeBron-esque to a lot of people. Now, again, how many guys have come along and have said, hey, this guy's the next this, the guy's the next that have never lived up to it? Flagg, again, he should be starting his college career right now because he reclassified, came out a year early, so he's a year younger than what most guys are when they do the one and done deal. But again, we saw him last year at Duke, phenomenal. Obviously, they didn't get all the way to winning the national championship, but he played lights out for pretty much the entire season, and now we get to see if that translates to the NBA.
Yeah, and I think he's in a good situation out there in Dallas. Like, you're going to have Kyrie Irving, you're going to have Anthony Davis, which I think he'll complement very, very well with. I understand, like, okay, again, going back to Luka for a second and getting AD in that trade, you should not be trading Luka. But to get AD, and if he could stay healthy, I think he does pair extremely well with a guy like Cooper Flagg. And that's someone that has a lot of experience in the NBA. Obviously, he was a first overall pick to the at the time, the New Orleans Hornets, who later became the Pelicans. So it works out from that standpoint of having that mentor figure. That should be perfect for a guy like Cooper Flagg. And then bringing him in, I think they are going to be able to contend right away. It's not like they were terrible this past year.
Sure.
But obviously adding Cooper should help out a lot.
So I'm watching last night's draft, and again, a team like Dallas isn't all that far removed from deep playoff runs. It shouldn't take them a lot to kind of get back towards being a very competitive team, in the NBA. But when I watch a draft like last night's, I'm looking at teams like the Wizards and the Hornets and teams that are just perennially terrible in the NBA. And I can't help but wonder if I'm a fan of these teams, no matter who they're drafting. And like the Wizards got Trey Johnson, who, again, very good player at Texas this past season, into the first year in the SEC. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to get excited if I'm a fan of those teams, because historically, you're just always bad. No matter who you have, no matter who you draft, you're always going to end up being really, really bad. And I just feel like when you're a fan of those teams, it almost feels like a death loop, but just over and over and over again. Maybe momentary excitement, only to be disappointed when the season actually gets here.
And those teams specifically, it always feels like they're in the lottery, right? But they never get the first pick. And even this year, like when Dallas gets the first pick, and it's like, if you're a Hornets fan, locally here, it's like, you have such a terrible year, one of the worst in franchise history, and it's like, you don't get the first pick, or you get the fourth pick. It just feels like a slap in the face, to be honest. And
sure.
It just kind of sums up those franchises and how bad they've been for years and years and years.
Yeah.
But then again, you're still picking top 5, and it's like, well, you should be able to get these picks right, but then again, you just never know.
And that's where I think in what the current NBA is, where we had our 7th or 8th different champion, this past year with Oklahoma City. If there was ever a time for optimism for some of these teams that just quite frankly suck on a year in, year out basis, it would probably be right now. Because you look at both Indiana and Oklahoma City making all the way to the finals, they built through the draft. Like, they built a team of young talent over a period of years, and that obviously parlayed them into playing in the NBA Finals. The era of the super team seems to be dead, where, okay, it's all going to be about who's going to go out there and get the biggest free agent signing and ride that wave of success all the way through. Like, we're seeing a shift in how championship-level programs are being built. And, again, now you have different champions every single year, so I'm not saying that the Hornets or the Wizards or any teams like that are suddenly going to jolt themselves into conference finals next year, but I guess this is the most optimism you could have had in a while for teams like that, knowing that the league itself is shifting towards a model and a way of success that probably allows you to be more competitive than ever.
Yeah, I think we've kind of moved away from the era of super teams. Like, that dominated the 2010s, where obviously it started with, I think, well, honestly, you could even go back further to, Paul Pierce and KG joining up with, all those guys, Ray Allen with the Celtics for years. But I think, LeBron going to the Heat kind of put it in motion for super teams to become the main thing, KD going to the Warriors, etc. But now I kind of feel like with what Sam Presti did with the Thunder, you're seeing this trend of, okay, if you draft right, if you stack up draft picks, kind of like what Brooklyn did last night with so many first-round picks, if you can get these picks right, you have a future, all right? Like, the Nets had, 5 first-round picks last night? I mean, it was insane. And if they get those picks right, you're talking about so much young talent for years to come. And the big thing is you don't have to sign any of those guys to, max contracts right now. They're all on their rookie deals and stuff. So you save money in that way, but it only works if you make the right picks. And so what the Thunder are doing, it's the ideal model, I think, for what can be done if you draft correctly. If you're not drafting right, it doesn't matter what picks you have. You're just going to kind of be like what the Hornets and the Wizards and teams like that have struggled for so long because they get their draft picks wrong more often than not.
One more thought on the draft here, and I saw Scott Van Pelt had a nice little rant on this on SportsCenter after the fact. Can we please get these guys taking pictures with the correct hats on when it comes to these trades? Like, famously, Luka was wearing an Atlanta Hawks hat, despite the fact that we knew he was going to the Mavericks all those years ago. And all these trades happen, so you add, like, okay, yeah, he's technically drafted by this team, but we know he's going to this team instead. Like, can we get the correct hats on these guys? Because it's so weird looking back, knowing, like, hey, this guy got drafted technically by this team, but ended up at this team, but he's wearing the original team's hat. Like, can we stop with this charade of lying that this guy's going to be going to this other city?
I've always thought it's the strangest thing. And Luka is the perfect example of a guy that gets drafted by one team. And it's like that hat with the Hawks logo on it. It's just kind of jarring to look at now, so many years later. And it happens every year where you're going to have trades happen after guys get picked and stuff, which I've always thought is so strange. Like, you pick a guy, and then you automatically trade him right afterwards.
Yeah, why can't we just say, okay, well, we know where he's going to Mavericks, so let's give him a Mavericks hat.
Exactly. So, yeah, I don't get it, but hey, it's one of the random quirks of the NBA, I guess.
The NBA draft continues coming up tonight at 8 o'clock on ESPN once again. Again, CMB, the highest, or the first ever lottery pick for South Carolina, going at number 9 to the Toronto Raptors. And we'll talk plenty about that more as the day rolls along. I want to get back into football coming up next because something happened last year in South Carolina football's opponents that hadn't happened in almost 2 decades. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. It's our head and Jack Beltry with you on your Thursday on The Game.
When it comes to HVAC replacements, AAA Heating and Air is the go-to name in the Midlands with guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. It's no wonder they're the best in the business. But wait, there's so much more. Did you know AAA Heating and Air also offers incredible deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're worried about the cost of it, well, they've got you covered, so no need to worry about it there. AAA offers up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check for all repairs. Yep. So homeowners just need a valid bank account, and you're all set. That's it. So don't sweat it. Call AAA Heating and Air today to take advantage of these amazing deals. Your comfort is just a call away.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Coming up today from noon until 3, myself, Terry Ford, will be over at the Nest at 1331 Gadsden Street. Come by for your chance to win some Gamecock football tickets as we are 66 days away from kickoff. And just come hang out with me and Terry again from noon until 3 over at the Nest on Gadsden Street right here in Columbia. I was perusing the internet yesterday, and of course we're in talking season, so all of the preview magazines are coming out. Athlon, Phil Steele, and all that. And Athlon gives their analysis of different coaches on the hot seat, right? And I've read through a couple of them, but one really stuck out to me yesterday, that being Brent Pry of Virginia Tech, who South Carolina will see in game number 1, as he is on one of the hotter seats in the entire country. We even talked to the Virginia Tech guy a while back, forget his name, but, he basically said, yeah, if they can't do better than like 500, he's probably gone, because Virginia Tech has a high standard up there. And it got me wondering, because I remember hearing some kind of stat coming away from the season that it was the first time in a while that none of South Carolina's opponents had fired their head coach after the season. So all the coaches that coached against South Carolina last year return to their respective schools this upcoming year. So I decided to dive deep into that and see how long it had been. And I also included coaches that left for better jobs too. So 2024 was the first time since 2006 that all of South Carolina's FBS opponents in a given year retained their exact same head coaches for the following season. So every single year for almost the past 20 years, at least one coach South Carolina has played has either been fired or left for a better job.
Jeez, that's it's kind of crazy. And you think about it, it's like that's kind of hard to do because there's so much turnover every single year in college football. Like coaches are getting fired right and left, and I think programs' patience wears thin, right? Like people don't want to wait 5 years for a turnaround. They want instant success,
especially now.
Yeah, especially now. And so you see coaches getting fired only a few years in. It's like, do they really have enough time to really work with what they've got? So, in the case of South Carolina, I do think potentially, as we'll talk about here, I think there is a chance that maybe a coach or two does get fired on this list.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have back-to-back years where this ends up being the case. And there are several coaches on significant hot seats going into this year. It starts off with Brent Pry in week number 1. And if South Carolina goes in there, I think, we last looked, they're like 9.5-point favorites. If they bludgeon the Hokies by like 3 touchdowns, that starts the year off on a very bad foot for Brent Pry. Now, even if Virginia Tech loses, but it's like a 3-point game and they can play South Carolina tight, I think that helps them a little bit. But if they get steamrolled and it's very clear, like, hey, here's a team that's almost, at least last year, a playoff level team, and you can't even hang with them, yeah, there's no hope here. And I think the ball would start rolling pretty quickly down the hill, like, all right, how long till this guy gets fired?
Oh, yeah, it would be a bad look to get blown out right out of the gate. Now, do I think that's going to happen? I don't think so. I think this will probably be one of those games that's a little bit tighter, and then you get into the fourth quarter, and maybe South Carolina just pulls away kind of late and takes a bigger lead than maybe the score might indicate if you watch. But, yeah, there's definitely a chance that if Virginia Tech does not – Virginia Tech went 6-7 last year. If they are about that or worse this upcoming season, then, yeah, I think Brent Pry is pretty much done with the Hokies. I think you have to get – to a bowl game for sure, and I think you do have to finish over 500 for his job to be secure for sure.
I think Clark Lee's not going anywhere coming off that Alabama win last year. Eli Drinkwitz is safe at Missouri. I don't as underwhelming as Mark Stoops is, his buyout is so insanely high. I don't think Kentucky wants to foot the bill for that no matter how bad this season goes.
But what if it's as bad as this past year was, right?
But do you have that money to spend though? That's the thing.
That's
especially now when you're paying athletes directly.
Yeah.
Like I think the standard for what constitutes firing is going to change because hey, we don't exactly have $40-50 million just lying around to hand this guy.
And you got to think about it. Like it's not just him you'd be firing; it's also the assistant,
the staff. Yeah.
And look, football's going to get the most money probably, right? But also at the same time, they have a basketball program that they are probably putting, I don't know how much money, but probably a lot of money into because that is their main sport there that they are very good at. So you have to consider so many things. And again, with revenue sharing being a thing now, you have to really be smart about what you do. And maybe it's just not worth making the move right away. I think unless it's like 2-10, 1-11 kind of bad, which I don't think Kentucky will be that bad this year. then I think you may have to consider pulling the trigger.
Brent Venables, another viable option. He is outside of the 10-win season 2 years ago. Underperformed in his couple years there at Oklahoma. That has a high standard for winning, and regardless of what the buyout is, I think Oklahoma would certainly make the move if they're another 500 or below team this year, because, again, that's just below the standard of what the Sooners expect. And, again, great defensive mind, but unfortunately as a head coach, it just has not worked out, though I do think they're going to be significantly better this year than they were last year.
Yeah, I think bringing in new coordinators should help. I think having John Mateer at quarterback blends itself well to being a perfect storm this year of, okay, this Sooner team was not good last year. Their offense was abysmal. Their defense was great. So if you get that same level of defense this year, great. If your offense can figure it out a little bit, then you're going to be so much better than what they were last year. The fact they got to a bowl game with how bad they were was a little bit surprising. But again, the schedule is always going to be tough in the SEC. I don't know what the expectations are really for this Oklahoma team. I think they're going to be decent, but I just don't. It can't get worse than what last year was.
So those are kind of the only coaches that I see are viable, like could be fired type situations, because like DeBoer's not going anywhere. Kiffin's not going anywhere. Elko, obviously Dabo, like all these guys are going to keep their jobs this upcoming year, no matter what happens on the field. Like the only one that I think has the opportunity to leave for a better job, maybe like Tim Beck at Coastal. Again, he's only been there 2 years, and they've been good. I think they've taken a little bit of a step down after Chadwell left for James Madison. But overall, I think and we've seen this before, if you're a group of 5 coach and have one really, really great season, you can often jump up to a bigger job pretty quickly. So if they went like 10-2 and won the Sun Belt this year, like Tim Beck could potentially be one of those guys that could find another job somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see it all the time with bigger programs in FBS. I mean, they're plucking these coaches from these group of 5 and FCS schools because they see what they did in a short amount of time with less and imagine what they could do with more. So it's understandable from that standpoint. But in terms of coaches that could potentially get fired on South Carolina's schedule, just to recap, I think you look at Virginia Tech with Brent Pry. I mean, if they are average or worse than they were last year, then it's like, okay, I think it's pretty easy to move on from there. Kentucky, obviously, we'll see what happens. Again, the buyout is just probably too big.
Yeah.
And then Oklahoma, I think we both expect Brent Venables and Oklahoma to be better this year, and that would lead to him having another year at the very least.
I said Jamin Chadwell went to James Madison. He's at Liberty.
Yes.
But nonetheless, Coastal Carolina taking a little bit of a step back since he's left, and Tim Beck's taken over down there on the coast. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 1 of the Extra Point. People are terrible, and we saw a perfect example of that the other day with the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll talk about that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you on your Thursday on the Game.
Yeah, it's just it was a terrible moment. Fans are nasty, and fans go too far sometimes. And I love my players, and I'm going to protect them.
Welcome back in. Next point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. That was voice of Diamondbacks manager Tony Lavulo the other day talking after a game against the White Sox. And if you haven't heard about this by now, Ketel Marte, one of their star players, obviously a big part of them getting to the World Series a couple years ago, was, I believe he was in the on-deck circle when this happened or getting ready to go on the field, and a White Sox fan began heckling him. And look, I'm all for having fun at games and heckling the opposing team and all that kind of stuff, but there's a line that you don't cross as a fan, or anybody for that matter. And this fan began heckling him about his mother, who had passed away in a car accident back in 2017. Marte very visibly upset about it, had to be consoled by Lavulo and his teammates when he was on the field. That fan has since been banned from all Major League Baseball parks, which absolutely the right decision there. I don't understand with the thought process of somebody, why you would go to this length to, again, heckle somebody you don't know. Yeah, they're on the opposing team, and sure, you can say you suck or I don't like your team or whatever. That's fine, but this is too far.
I don't understand it at all, and I haven't heard the context of what exactly was said. I'm sure there might be a video out there. I did see what the kid looked like that was heckling him. You know, a little 22-year-old guy in a Bears jersey and stuff at a White Sox game. It's just a bad look. You know, it's not the first time stuff like this has happened this year. There was a fan earlier this year, I think in April, at a Red Sox game that heckled Jarren Duran, who notably almost committed suicide and made jokes about that, heckling him with the Red Sox. It's just stuff like that just doesn't belong. And to heckle someone about their dead mom who's been dead since 2017, that's just not necessarily something you should be doing. But
it's, and I'm going to sound like an old man saying this, but I think we as a society have gotten so comfortable saying whatever we want without repercussions for the most part online, on social media sites, forums, whatever it may be, where you can be as anonymous as you want to be. Yeah, like we have Twitter presences under our actual names that tie us to our employers, but if I wanted to start a, Gamecock Tyler 2722, you would have no idea who I am, and I could say whatever I wanted, and nobody would be able to chase it back to me. And there's tons of other sites, Reddit and all that kind of stuff, where you can remain anonymous and say whatever without it ever coming back to bite you. So I feel like we've become so comfortable with that when people get out in the real world, they don't have that filter anymore of like, there are some things that shouldn't be said at all in general, especially publicly, that maybe I shouldn't do in this situation that dude, again, you said about 22 years old, clearly didn't do there. Now, he expressed, a remorse and stuff after the fact, but it's like, no, dude, you knew what you were doing when you said it. You're just now backpedaling because you got caught and are now not able to go to any Major League Baseball games anymore.
Yeah. Again, it's one thing to just randomly heckle just about like, oh, you suck or whatever, but like to actually like heckle about someone's mom, you have to like at least know the context of it.
Yes.
When you're doing it. So yeah, the guy knew what he was doing, and he's an idiot. And honestly, I'm glad to see that Major League Baseball has taken the steps to ban him for life from all stadiums and whatnot. And I liked what the White Sox did the next day when Ketel came up to bat for the first time, and there's on the Jumbotron out there at, I want to say U.S. Cellular Field, but it's a guaranteed rate where it says baseball is family, the White Sox community supports Ketel Marte. Stuff like that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, look, he was very emotional about it. I mean, how many times have you seen a guy cry on the field over something like this, which obviously it means a lot to him that whatever the guy said, it hurt him, and it's just stuff like that just does not belong at all.
And I think there's also the degree of this person knows that no matter what he says, that Ketel Marte can't come by the stands and hurt him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I am technically safe sitting here in these stands. It's one of those things that you almost kind of wish you could lock those two in a room for 5 minutes together and see what happens. Like, think he might learn his lesson then.
And look, the excuse is always that, oh, these guys make millions and millions of dollars. They'll be fine, right? Just because they make a lot of money.
And they're not superhuman. It's not like they don't have emotions.
They are human. They're literally just like us. They just get paid a lot more money to play a game. And so, look, it's just, it happened, but it's something that is just, there's a line you just should not cross. And in this case, definitely should not have been crossed, but the guy did, and he got what he deserved.
Yeah, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Hopefully this is a deterrent for anybody else that wants to do something anywhere remotely close to something awful like this. So, hopefully that dude learned his lesson, and I don't know. That's just awful.
Just be nice. Just be kind.
That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Club Hour. Jay Urich going to join myself and Wes Mitchell. Coming up next, we'll see what he's been up to in his time since leaving South Carolina. It is the Extra Point. Tyler and Jack Beltry here with you on the game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. If you live anywhere in the Midlands, it probably rained pretty darn hard at your home last night. And if you have an open crawl space under your home, you might have some standing water under there today. So when you get home from work or whatever, you might want to check it out just to be safe, because having open water in your crawl space can create a ton of issues like mold, mildew. It can even affect the air that you breathe in your home, because about half the air that comes into your home comes from your crawl space. You don't want to be breathing in nasty, moldy, mildewy type of air, do you? Of course not. That's our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your crawl space and foundation problems and get them fixed so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. 10 o'clock, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell along with you, welcoming back for the second time former Gamecock quarterback Jay Urich hanging out with us. Jay, appreciate you taking your time and coming back. Believe it's been right about 2 years maybe since you were last in here. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right. I'm excited to be back, and Wes and I have been texting a little bit and hearing everything that's been going on in Gamecock Nation. I've been excited to hear everything that's been going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, glad to have Jay back. We're going to talk about Tyler, maybe second segment, some of the things he's been getting. Jay likes to start businesses and likes to help in the community, and we got a lot to get to, a lot to talk about in terms of that. But also, we're just going to talk some ball, man. So
very cool.
Love that.
So it's a fun year to talk ball.
It is. Jay, there's two guys. I was like, we gotta talk to Jay about, one, Lenore Sellers, and then two, Luke Doty, who I know you know very well and is going to be working with you on some things a little bit. Let's hold off on the Lenore's talk. Let's talk about Luke because, man, I know you're a guy. You were a quarterback coming in as well, but you also were like, hey, I'm willing to do whatever I can to help the team. Played some receiver, helped on special teams. And Luke, just throughout his time at South Carolina, has been the same way. Mm-hmm. I mean, are y'all just kind of do y'all share a kinship in the fact that y'all both have that mindset, I guess?
I guess so. I mean, I feel like we're brothers in some way. I think he came in 2 years after I did. And so, obviously, we were both playing quarterback whenever he got there. So we didn't really go into that transition until later on in our careers. But, yeah, Luke is amazing. I mean, I met him early on. We actually trained with the same quarterback trainer, Coach Ramon Robinson, early in a high school career. So I trained with him in high school, and then he was obviously getting recruited to go everywhere, and he chose South Carolina. So I was able to build that relationship early on, and then, obviously got to South Carolina, became friends. And one thing about Luke, outside of, his athletic ability is, I mean, as everybody knows, he's just mature way beyond his years. Like, I'm like, how do you even – like, how are you doing this? And just his humility, how he treats people. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, and it's such a unique thing in today's world of college football, especially with the ability to stay as long as you can with extra years and COVID eligibility. For one guy to stay in one place this long, we hear him talk about, hey, I just love South Carolina, but that's such a thing we don't hear in today's day and age. Like, he's very much an old school guy that is truly here because he loves the university.
Yeah, I call him an old head a lot of times. I feel like I know the guys in the locker room probably call him that too.
With Luke this year, though, man, he's competing for that backup quarterback spot. And it was kind of interesting hearing, hey, Luke's back in that quarterback room a little bit more going into the spring. And then the more we were out there, the more you started to hear, it's like, all right, I think the wide receiver days might be in the past, at least for now. You never know with Luke. And, I think Luke's got a shot to win that backup quarterback job. Now, obviously, some of the other guys will have their say in that too, but there are definitely worse things to have as your backup quarterback than a guy with the experience, the maturity, the demeanor that Luke would bring to that position. So, I mean, I'm not going to be shocked at all if Luke Doty ends up being the backup quarterback this season potentially.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked either. I feel like, I mean, you look at his career, he's not only been able to play and have so much experience, but the people that he's been around, not only, Coach Beamer and also all of our coaches now, but, all these previous coaches that we've had, even back to the time whenever I was playing is, you get that experience from so many different people and those perspectives that I think, it's going to pay off. Learning, I think Luke probably has had to learn like 4 or 5 different playbooks. Yeah. So it's like you're able to learn new things and learn new perspectives and how to attack the defense and, utilize that. And so I think that's going to really be beneficial for him.
Former Gamecock Jay Urich joining us here on the Gamecock Club Hour. And I think about it like this because, again, if the hope is that Lenore Sellers is healthy the entire year, you never have to go to that backup option. But if, God forbid, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, he went down in like the first game, your options are, okay, this guy that's been around for 5 years or a guy in Aaron Noland or Cutter Woods that have literally never taken a snap at the college level. Now, as the season goes along, maybe you feel more comfortable in saying, okay, later in the year, maybe it is Aaron Nolan or Cutter Woods, but at least right out of the gate, for those first handful of games, Luke Doty definitely seems like that better option, just given the experience alone.
Jay, I want to talk about Lenoris too, like I said, and man, we all have, like, there's the thing with Lenoris is I don't even know what more you say about him because we've all said it all at this point, but as a former quarterback yourself, I was curious just what your thoughts have been watching his development, what things you noticed, this season, maybe from game 1, game 2, as the season progressed, just how he got better along the way, and then your familiarity, with him working with Ramon as well. Just what can you tell us from your eyes about how Lenoris has progressed and just his upside, man?
Yeah, I think the first thing that, I was actually in Clemson last night, I was telling you, and I was at an event, and I was walking by the stadium, and I saw it, and I was like, we just went in there and just whooped their butt last year. And Lenoris obviously was a big part of that. And I think to that point, he was able to execute in the biggest moments. That obviously that game was at the end of the season, but he had a lot of those, earlier games to progress and to get better. And just to see the ability to execute in the toughest moments, in the biggest environments against the best, I think that's what stands out to me because, all those other wins are great and all those other statistics are great, but like Gamecock Nation knows, you beating Clemson is one of the biggest things you can do.
Now, did you know at what point, like, had Ramon or someone been like, man, I got this guy coming up? That's the beauty of Ramon, too. Like, he's going to talk about his guys. He's going to tell you who he's got coming up. He's got another great one in Cutter, I think, on the way up right now, too. But at what point did you maybe hear, like, hey, man, this Lenoris Sellers kid, he's just built a little different?
Oh, yeah. I think I heard – I can't remember. I think it was just his senior year. Because didn't he win the state championship his senior year or his junior year?
Senior, yeah, because it was the junior year he got hurt.
Okay.
Which is why his recruitment didn't really take off the way it probably would have.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that senior year, Coach, I stayed in contact with Coach Ramon, and he was definitely talking about him. And just to be able to see, right when I first met him, how huge he was. And I think he's even gotten even bigger since he's been in the weight room at South Carolina with their nutrition department. But, obviously you see him, and it's like, holy smokes. But then you get to meet him, and just his demeanor, like I know everybody talks about all the time, but, he's just a great guy all around and a great player. And, something crazy comes out of him when he gets on the field, which I really love.
So we're kind of dealing with something, this offseason that you kind of dealt with, where you go from Dow Loggins being the offensive coordinator to Mike Shula, who was the quarterback coach and obviously involved in the offense. And when you were here, you obviously had McClendon take over during your time, though he was already the co-offensive coordinator. What's it like to have somebody that's already involved but now becomes the main guy when it comes to running the offense? How does that change the way you go about things, the way things are called, and the things that Sellers is kind of dealing with this offseason? Yeah,
it definitely helps whenever the coach was already there because – you're around them, and so you get to know them, and whether or not they're calling the plays or not, they still have that gel within the whole team, and so I think that's a huge factor in it. And then even if you're not in that position group, like McClendon was receivers, I was in quarterback at the same time. A lot of coaches in team meetings or offensive meetings, you're getting to hear from different coaches. So the OC might be doing the main amount of talking, but then the running backs coach might get up there in one meeting and sort of lead the meeting. So now you're already sort of familiar with the voice and the perspective, and I'm sure throughout practices and drills, you're able to get that coach's personality. We're like, all right, well, I know Coach Shula loves taking deep balls, even though he might not have been the OC. So you sort of get that perspective, and I think it really helps whenever they were there before they were the OC.
For sure. Have you been around Beamer and this staff much?
Not too much. I have had a couple meetings with Coach Beamer, and that's been great, and getting to know him and what he's doing for the program. But I've been to a couple practices, but not anything too much.
What do you? From just your perspective there too, and outside looking in as well. Like, what do you think makes this group tick. Like I do feel like there's kind of a like culture is kind of the overblown word. Every coach wants to talk about culture in their press conferences, but so it's a little bit cliche almost. But what they're doing definitely does seem to be connecting with young players.
For sure, and I think that's something I was talking about the other day is like you can't fake, a genuine culture. And that's what Coach Beamer's done is like it's real. And that's something I'm so excited about is, you can feel it. And even though, I'm not as involved as I used to be playing, it's like, from the players that I still stay in contact with or just you're able to see it. And I think that is so impactful because that culture doesn't just impact wins now, but it's about the future. It's about coaches' vision for creating great humans and great people off the field as well, that when they're done playing football, they're able to come back to be involved in the program, but also do great things throughout the rest of the world.
Is that something you can figure out, like, even during the recruiting process? And we played the other day, the clip of Beamer giving like a WWE intro to some of the guys that were on campus this past weekend. And of course, every coach is going to play into the recruits and be nice to them and all that kind of stuff. But it can switch when you actually get on campus and start playing for someone. Can you tell in the recruiting process what coaches are actually for their players and what guys are just, trying to get you there in general?
I think so. I think you can sort of tell. And, I think the communication is the biggest part, at least for me in the recruiting process, where you're able to see, all right, is this coach just going to, fire away a bunch of texts or calls right around the visit time, or is he consistent? And even talking to Luke the other day, he was, talking to me about, a lot of what Coach Beamer's philosophy is, and he's, one of the best recruiters in the country. So I feel like the way he builds relationships, the way he treats people and creates that relationship, I think is obviously why we're having so much success, because those recruits feel like family and they know that he's there for them, not just for what they can do, but, who they are.
What is your evaluation of Cutter Woods?
I haven't seen him play this spring, but I know I watched some of his film in high school, and I actually got to I don't think we trained together, but I saw some clips of him training with Ramon, and, I'm very impressed. I think he has great potential, and he can spin it, and he's not afraid of the moment either. And so that's something that's been impressive as I've been watching him. But I'm excited to see him and get to know him a little bit more.
It is the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. We'll have more with Jay Urich coming up next on your Thursday here on The Game.
All right, guys, football season right around the corner, which means it might be time to upgrade that man cave at your house. Give our friends at Integrated Media a call, 803-948-8327, or just hit them up online, integratedmediainc.com. They've been to Chris Clark's house. They've been to my house. Let them come to your house as well. It could be, like I said, something as grand as going full-on man cave, home theater system, surround sound, all of the above, or as simple as maybe hanging a TV, upgrading the living room setup. They also have smart home services, upgrading your audio and video, and, of course, security and cameras as well. You can run it all off of a tablet right there in your house, and they're going to make it all match up for you, make it super simple to use. IntegratedMediaInc.com, again, is that website, and the phone number, 803-948-8327. Hit up our friends at Integrated Media today.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Ed West Mitchell hanging out with former Gamecock football player Jay Urich here on your Thursday on the game. Again, Jay's been in here previously about 2 years ago, I believe, and I can't remember if you had this going at this point or at that point in time or not. I know you were talking about it. We're in this new world of college sports, the NIL and all that kind of stuff, so everything's changing, and there's different ways to get involved and different things and avenues these players need to be aware of, and that's something that you have now essentially turned into what you're doing in terms of helping players not only while they're in college, but prepare for life after college as well and whatever that next chapter is going to be for them.
Yeah, exactly, and as the college game is progressing, I felt like there was a need to actually help the younger generation. So we're going to be helping middle and high school athletes thrive beyond sports. And so, a lot of the middle and high school athletes have that passion to play in college, but a lot of them, are going to play in high school and then they're going to get a job and move on from there. And so at Banner Player Development, what we're trying to do is just help prepare them for, life beyond sports. And, obviously it's going to help them on the field or the track or wherever they're playing, but is how do you set yourself up to succeed beyond sports?
So if they want more information, bannerpd.com, right?
Yep.
Love the website, by the way, man. You got a lot going on here. Is that Franklin Buchanan I see talking from Post Up?
Yep.
I recognized a lot of faces on this website.
Yeah, so he was part of so we have a online curriculum that either parents can get for their athletes or coaches can invest in as well. And so he came on and talked about networking and the importance of that, and not only how that might translate if your athlete wants to play in college, with coaches, how do you reach out to coaches, and what do you say, how do you email them, how do you call them, but at the same time the networking piece of how do you build relationships beyond sports as well.
Do you find that in doing this, there's a lot of people that kind of have the tunnel vision of, well, of course he's going to play in college, of course he's going to go pro, and not having anything outside of that? Is it hard to kind of get them to understand, hey, hope that happens for your child, but you have to have these other avenues planned out as well just in case? It
is challenging, but I think as time goes on and with how things are going with NIL and college athletics, it's becoming a little bit more a little easier, but at the same time, it's also tough because the way people are becoming more familiar with, preparing for more than just sports is through tragedy. And, we see the LSU receiver who, had tragedy and some other instances where, when college athletes are done playing, it's really hard. And that's just not my story. A lot of people's stories is, you're identified by football. You're identified by what you do, which is good in a sense. But whenever that's over, you have to know who you are, and you have to be prepared for, years and years and years of not doing what you have been doing for so long.
So many of our listeners are obviously right here in the Midlands, and coming up, I know, Jay, July 12th, River Bluff. You've got your first Banner conference, I believe, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., again, right here in Columbia, River Bluff. And you have, are you going to have some tickets available for this, but they're free?
Yeah, they are free. Okay. So we have a couple sponsors, Firehouse Subs, Rob and Linda, Hot Chesler, and then Matt Gasses have made it happen to where we're able to have this conference for free. And originally we had 150 spots. Well, we've already had, I checked this morning, we have 167. So we've already gone above and beyond. So we're going to increase that, have 50 more tickets, and then we're gonna cap it. And so parents are welcome as well. That's a big thing that we're doing at Banner is obviously we're helping, these high school athletes, but we want the parents to be involved, and we want them to know the importance of, their athletes' development, whether it be in building their brand or the leadership or character that we're teaching. So it's a joint effort, and I think having the parents there too would be good.
I'm going to ask you an open-ended question, Jay. So the conference coming up July 12th, if I'm out there listening, who is this conference for? What if I'm sitting there and say that might be something for me, that might not be? Who will this be geared towards helping?
It's a great question. So if you're a high school athlete and you play any sport, that's who it's for. Banner in general is for middle and high school athletes, but this conference is just for high school athletes. So whether you play volleyball, football, track, whatever sport, we're going to have former college athletes from a bunch of different sports represented, and so you're going to get a heavy group of. You're just going to get a bunch of wisdom from a bunch of different people.
Again, Jay Urich, former Gamecock, hanging out with us on the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. And forgive me if we talked about this the last time you were here, but how did you get to the point of developing something like this? Where did this idea come from? Is it something you've always wanted to do?
I think it comes from what I just sort of briefly mentioned on is the heartbreak of what happens on the other side if athletes aren't developed beyond the field. And so I know how personal, it all comes back to like my, your experiences. And so for me, that challenge was difficult of transitioning from, years and years of playing football and then now who are you? But I had a lot of people around me too. We had, at South Carolina, we have, director of player development. We had Connor Shaw, Marcus Lattimore, our coaches. But I realized that, I had all that support and it still was challenging. Imagine a middle or high school athlete who might not have that same support, and they might have their parents, but I wanted to make sure that every high school athlete in South Carolina had that kind of same support to where, they're being prepared for whenever, their sport might end.
Do you believe that, there's obviously an ongoing discussion about NIL and the positives of it, the negatives of it. There's certainly some of both, but if you're an athlete now, and you do make it to college and you are, successful, NIL is going to be a part of your life. And that means you kind of you have to be a brand. You have to treat what was maybe a hobby or something you did for fun in some ways like a business. But do you think having to navigate the NIL space in college maybe will set up other players who, like yourself, have like business ideas or passions that they want to turn into a business and maybe empower them if they want to start their whatever banner is for them. Maybe they have a little bit more of a foundation because they've dealt with this business side. 20 years ago, that probably was not the case at all.
Yeah, for sure. I think the exposure is the biggest thing. Like you're saying, they're already getting, that exposure with different business owners that they're talking to or partnering with. You're getting, I'm sure Demo, I know he's doing a great job as the director of player development now to be able to give some experiences now to where they're walking into life more prepared, which I think that's another, I think NIL gets a bad rap a lot of times, but that's a really cool perspective that you brought up, Wes, of, how is this preparing for them? How is this preparing them for, in a good way after they're done playing?
Again, right now this banner thing is obviously local. Where do you kind of see this growing and expanding possibly in years to come? Where do you think you can take this? Yeah, so I see it impacting a lot of different athletes throughout the whole country. Obviously, we're starting in South Carolina. We've partnered with Ridgeview High School with Brian Rosefield, their athletic director, as well as Pinewood Prep with Devontae Holloman down in the lower state. And so, we help coaches and athletic directors as well. They have the same passion, but they might be focusing on the X's and O's and, they need that player development curriculum. So we've done that. And then, I have personal clients that I coach one-on-one. But I also see that growing too, to where, there's other athletes, former athletes who have the same passion, and I want to empower them to have a group of athletes at Banner to coach and mentor. And so I see that being the main way we grow, whether it be through the schools and impacting the athletic directors and coaches, or through individuals where parents say, hey, I want my athlete to be mentored by a former college athlete.
Let's you mentioned it briefly, but let's give our guy Larry Chandler some love.
Yes.
He supports our Gamecock Central show here on 107.5, and I know he not only is supporting Banner, but I know he supported your nonprofit as well. Just a great supporter of all things in this community and Gamecock community.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up because I wouldn't be where I am without him. And, just huge, generous, amazing guy that I'm so thankful for. Like you mentioned, he's on our board at Original Design, my nonprofit that helps children in Columbia. And, his passion for the next generation, his passion for helping me. He's a very successful person. He could be doing a lot of different things, but he chooses to spend time with me and to pour into me and whatever I'm doing. And he's made an impact on so many people. I'm thankful for him.
We talked about Luke a little bit earlier, but so Luke Doty, he's going to be a panelist on, is this at the conference?
Yep, at the conference, yep. So he's going to be there. We're going to have a bunch of, a couple keynote speakers, but we're going to have a big group of former college athletes on the panel, and he'll be on that.
And real quick before we let you go, one more time, kind of remind people about that conference and how they can be a part of it.
Yes, you can sign up at bannerpd.com. It's for all high school athletes in the state of South Carolina. Parents are welcome, and come and learn and grow and what it takes to thrive off the field.
We got an on-the-field prediction for the Gamecocks yet? How have you
I haven't
thought
looked
about
at the
it?
schedule yet. I've thought about it. I think we're going to win a lot of games. So
Yeah.
that's what makes me happy. But I need to sit down and actually look at the schedule.
How just massive is it that you're going to go into every game? We probably got the best quarterback on the field.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. I mean that plus our defense. I mean I'm normally like you're talking about thinking the offense, but I'm like, I mean that defense helps so much, specifically as an offensive player. To where I know Lenoris is thinking, man, I'm so glad we have Dylan Stewart and those linebackers and DBs back there to protect our end zone.
Yeah, should be a fun season coming up, and really cool all this stuff you're doing to try and help out the next generation of athletes.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me on.
Absolutely. It's the Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling Heating. We'll have more coming up next here on your Thursday on the Game.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, Krantz, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's Ira and Wes Mitchell along with you here on your Thursday. Again, appreciate our guy, Jay Urich, hanging out with us there, and a lot of cool things that he's doing. Again, trying to, help that next crop of athletes, whether it be in college or prepare for their life away from sports as well. It got me thinking, because, again, we're doing the jobs we do right now because our athletic careers did have to come to an end at some point. Was there a moment for you playing sports where you kind of realized, like, all right, it's probably about as far as I'm going to go, and not much past this?
I don't know if there's an exact moment, but let me think about that as I talk, Tyler. It does bring to mind, though, something I don't know when I kind of had this epiphany, but every player that's ever picked up a ball of some kind has a moment where they walk into a room and they're not the baddest dude in that room anymore. And they may not know it yet, but eventually they have a realization, potentially if they have any wherewithal whatsoever, of I was the best player on every team I've ever been on. And I'm not anymore, And I think the vast majority of just kind of your maybe average athlete probably hits that, like, when they start playing high school ball. I feel like, that for me, it was, people who really know me know, like, baseball was my, like, sport growing up. It was, rec league, one of the better players, played shortstop. And then you get to high school ball, and you're just looking around, you're like, dang.
Everybody's good.
Yeah, everybody here is, like, just as good, if not better than me. And so, if you're fortunate enough to have that realization in college, then you're actually a pretty kind of freaky athlete compared to the rest of the population, I think. And then some guys have that moment, at the professional level. And if that's the case, you are, very to me. I mean, I started to kind of have that moment too when the ball started, like, really curving. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's one thing to hit it when it's straight. But when you start seeing 3 pitches and you're having to adjust at the plate, and then you have to adjust and then hit, like, the ball curve, I mean, that for me was like, all right, I can hit this thing. I can square it up pretty well when it's coming straight. But at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I should make different plans than playing shortstop for the Atlanta Braves.
I was going to say, watching it on TV, you can obviously see a lot of movement on pitches, but when you're actually standing in the box against somebody that can make it fall off a shelf, essentially, and do all kinds of crazy things, like, how is that even possible? My thing was kind of similar because when I was in high school and playing on the JV team, we would scrimmage against varsity, and, our varsity ace, I think he ended up playing at Savannah State, but I went into the box against him. He threw it so fast, I never saw the pitch. I heard it hit the catcher's mitt. I blinked and it went by me, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is a little bit of a speed jump from what I've seen, up to this point, and I was never able to adapt to that, unfortunately.
And you're not alone in that. I mean, that's the hand-eye coordination of hitting a baseball when the pitcher can spin it all types of different ways is one of the hardest things to do in sports. My favorite thing, though, is if you played high school ball and then dropped down back to rec league in the summer. And then you're like, okay, like, this is fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was definitely it for me. It was just at some point playing high school ball, it's like, all right, this is different. And I do always kind of think it's funny when people, watch on TV, I could do that.
No, you can't.
Go to a Major League Baseball game, and before the game starts, walk down as far as they'll let you go, like actually close to field level, and watch them take infield. And just watch the distance that the third baseman and the shortstop are throwing the baseball, and how easily they are throwing the ball at about 85 miles an hour across the diamond, not even trying. And you'll be like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, or go stand down by the bullpen and watch them just warm up and get ready to go in the game.
Yeah, you can do that at Carolina Stadium.
You
even,
can
and
too, yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's wild, and it's funny to think because, like you said, when you're in rec league, there's a ton of good players that are guys that are on the all-star team, and I feel like every rec league had the one dude, right, that was just head and shoulders better than everybody else, hitting home runs, striking guys out, and everybody's like, oh, that dude's going to go pro. And we had one of those dudes in my rec league that ended up being one of my high school teammates. And, yeah, he was a really, really good player. He never even made it to college baseball because, again, he kind of evened out once he got to high school. And that, again, kind of reinforces, just how good you have to be to play at the college level, to get drafted, and to make it all the way up to the majors, because you have to be even better than all those guys that we thought were the standard growing up and playing against.
And then on top of it, you got to be willing to work, man. That's the other part. The amount of work these guys put in probably doesn't get talked about enough. Like these are, I know they have a ton of resources. Like Jay said, they got more resources they could ever have before, but still, it is not easy to do all the stuff you have to do in the classroom, to do all the stuff you now probably need to do if you want to make some money in terms of managing it on a business standpoint.
Sure.
And then just the strength conditioning, the regular practice, the film rooms, the meetings, everything else that goes along with it. It's not easy at all to manage. As a college non-athlete, I couldn't have done it, man. I was so lazy when I got to college, like, there's no way. And I know these guys have something they're working towards, so that maybe changes the calculus there a little bit. But, yeah, man, these guys, they've got to put in the work. All the guys, if you sign at the University of South Carolina, you have talent.
Yes, clearly.
You have to be able to outwork the other guy. Unless you're the rarest of, unless you're Clowney or something.
Sure.
You have to outwork everybody, too.
I mentioned the tunnel vision thing with him because, I'm growing up and being around a lot of other athletes. There were the people that were convinced that either they were going to go pro or their child was going to go pro and all that kind of stuff. And did you have that friend or know somebody that you played with that, like, from the young age was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to go pro, no plan B here, where at some point you're like, hey, man, you should probably maybe think about doing something else just in case this doesn't work out for you?
I don't know if I had a buddy that had that mindset. I played against some guys. I can't say for sure if they did, but they definitely maybe carried themselves like this is what I'm going to do. I don't know if any of those guys played even college ball, honestly. But they were, there's a few guys that come to mind that basically were not just at the regular, but when you'd go play All-Stars, like they were they were the guys, and they knew it, and they carried themselves like it. And maybe they played at a small college or something. So
I had a buddy, we were teammates on the middle school wrestling team, and we went to different high schools. And he was a good wrestler, but his aspirations were to become a UFC fighter. And I remember, that there's always that one kid in math class that asked the teacher, like, hey, where's this going to apply in my future life? And they give you some kind of answer. And he asked this question to our 8th grade math teacher, I think. And, she told him whatever. And she says, Dylan, what do you want to do with your life? He says, well, I want to become a UFC fighter. And she's like, well, I guess if you become that, maybe you don't need this math then. So good luck to you. Spoiler, he didn't become a UFC fighter.
Yeah, it's tough. You gotta walk the line, I feel like, too. It's not easy being a teacher. You gotta walk the line between, you want people that have high aspirations and big dreams, but
sure,
you need to have the realistic factor as well of maybe I can pursue that while also putting together a backup plan.
Yes. Yeah, you always have plan B. And, again, watching the College World Series this past weekend, they play that same commercial over and over again. Hey, 99% of these athletes go pro in something other than sports. Again, just getting to college is hard enough, but getting from that next step to professional level is even tougher. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. If you have a moment where you knew you weren't going to be going pro at whatever sport you were playing, let us know on the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. It is the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Crance Cooling and Heating on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Club Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. It's our Ed and Wes Mitchell along with you on your Thursday. We'll get into the NBA draft coming up top of the 11 o'clock hour with Chris and talk about CMB heading up to Toronto to become the newest member of the Raptors in a couple minutes here. Dylan, hit this real quick. Did you hear that the Pac-12 is kind of coming back alive, sort of?
I would put that in the headline category for me. I saw the headline. Didn't click.
Well, it still technically exists with Oregon State and Washington State. In 2026, they are going to be adding Boise, Fresno, Colorado, San Diego State, and Utah State, all as football members. Gonzaga's going to join via basketball because they don't have football. They've been looking for an 8th football member, and it seems like that's going to be Texas State. So think about this. You're going to have two teams in Texas. One of them is going to play in the Pacific 12 Conference, as in the Pacific Coast. One of them is going to be playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference in SMU, as in the ACC. Like, if there's any microcosm for how insane realignment has gotten.
Two of them in the state of Texas playing in the Southeastern
Conference, yes, which Texas is not part of the Southeast. Is there any more ridiculous ones? Because Texas State was in the Sun Belt. I don't know where the Sun Belt's supposed to stop, technically speaking. But, yeah, the state of Texas might be the perfect microcosm for how insane conference realignment's gotten.
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but my eyes just glaze over at some of this stuff. It's so hard to keep up with. And, I mean, do these new Pac-12 schools move the needle?
No.
For you and for the Pac-12?
And that's the thing is, like, these are all schools, with the exception of Texas State, that were in the Mountain West. Mm-hmm. They're just now, and they already kind of have this weird agreement with the Mountain West this past year and this upcoming year when it comes to scheduling. So it's almost kind of like they're splitting the conference in half. They got a little bit of a TV deal with CBS and CW, but it's nothing, like, crazy. So, and look, this isn't going to be looked at as a power conference. It's still going to be seen as a now group of 6, I guess. So I guess for just playing under the banner of what was formerly a Power 5 conference, that does something, but not a whole lot. Again, I think they would have just been better served into taking the two schools left in Oregon State and Washington State and just bringing them into the Mountain West. What made more sense to me, but this is what they're going to do, I guess.
Yeah. Could Texas State be a sleeping giant, though, a little bit? Like,
maybe.
You're obviously in a state that is football crazed, a state that has shown it can support multiple successful football programs. And, that's a team actually I feel like popped up a lot in the portal in terms of, other schools taking some of their players. But, Carolina was in on a defensive tackle from Texas. I think they had 2 defensive tackles transfer out and go Power 4. Mm-hmm. So that's a place that has been getting talent. And, unfortunately for them, they've been losing the talent as well. But maybe if you step into a bigger conference, maybe that changes a little bit. I don't know. Like, does the Pac-12 name still carry enough weight with guys or not, I guess would be my question.
I don't think so, and especially in what we assume is the new AQ world that we live in of college sports that's going to continue going forward. The lack of a guarantee when it comes to the playoff, I think, again, kind of puts you down there with the MAC and the Sun Belt and the Mountain West and stuff like that. Like, yeah, if you're the best in your conference and seen as the best G5 team, you're going to have a chance. But that, thing of, if you're the best team in the SEC or the best team in the ACC, you're going to get in no matter what. That doesn't exist for the Pac-12, and I don't think it ever will again because, again, you've just lost so much quality in terms of the schools that you had that have gone elsewhere now that I don't think you're ever rebuilding that.
Well, and I feel like the talent, for lack of a better word, in this case, the talent is like the schools themselves. It consolidated so much into the other conferences that there just weren't many major schools left at this point. So then you're going, all right, is there a sleeping giant out there that can maybe become more of a power school, or did you just miss the boat, basically?
At some point this summer, maybe I can give you and Chris a quiz on how many teams you can name in their current conference.
I would do terrible.
Maybe that'll
at
be our
that.
extra credit at the end of the countdown to kickoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So
Sounds
be
fun.
thinking about that. But trivia question right around the corner for 66 days coming up next as we get into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on the game.
All right, guys, let me tell you again about our friends over at Classic Roofing. For more information, head on over to classicroofingsc.com or give them a call today, 803-590-7870. Major storm rolling through the Midlands yesterday. Of course, lots of thunderstorms roll through during the summer anyway. If you have roof issues, give our friends a call. Again, 803-590-7870. Or if you're not having issues, go to their website, hit the free estimate button, let them come out and give you that free inspection. Regular roof inspections after a storm allow you to stay on top of any problems that are occurring or about to occur with your roof, preventing them from spiraling out of control. Of course, that's going to give you an idea of what's next, or there's some small problems that could become big problems that you could go ahead and tackle now, or it's going to give you an idea of how much life you have left on that roof so you can go ahead and plan. Hit them up today, classicroofingsc.com or 803-590-7870.
11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, Wes, and Chris along with you here. Obviously, big night at the NBA draft last night as Colin Murray-Boyles heard his name called very early in the first round of the draft. We'll get into all that, as well as the North Sellers conversation on the Zach Gelb Show from a little bit earlier on in this week as well. But hopefully you guys survived the storm last night. I know, Wes, you don't like talking about weather, but that was a nasty one last night.
Yeah, I lost power. So I was sitting. Yeah, I was sitting in the dark as CMB got drafted. Thought I was playing softball yesterday and got quickly kicked off the field because the temp dropped about 25 degrees in a matter of minutes. And
so that's a sign.
Yeah, dude, it was like, I swear there was a breeze that had a chill in it. After it was like 93 degrees out, and then there was a chill, and I was like, okay, we're about to get hammered. And sure enough, everybody was running to their cars, and then, I mean, it hit our neighborhood pretty good. I think everybody's fine, but it was no power for a while.
You got it back last night, though?
Yeah.
Did you say that?
But no, I got it back at like 4 a.m.
Middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we live, and we haven't had any huge, kind of first world problems, but like we lose power for some reason, easily, it seems like.
Because
I was just waiting on it.
You had it last year during the thing that came through in October. It was days, right?
Yeah, we were out for a week.
A week, yeah.
Yeah. There was one of our neighbors had a tree literally go through her house, into her living room. There was a power line down for a long time in the neighborhood. But I don't know, for some reason, it's kind of bad out that way, and I was just waiting on it, and
you got spared this time.
We got spared. Yeah. It looked a little rough for a while, but hope everybody's okay out there.
Yeah, that's good. Nasty weather. Again, this time of year, just always have those things that pop up later in the afternoon. Again, we'll get into CMB getting drafted here in just a moment, but we are 66 days away from kickoff. It is time for yet another trivia question as Wes is putting together a nice little lead now, 2.5 points, 8.5 to Chris's 6 as of right now. We'll go to the 1966 season. South Carolina went 1-9. What team did they pick up their one victory against?
See, that's why you do your research. Have you done your research on this one, Chris?
I looked at this, I want to say last night, and I already forgot.
So all right, here,
but I do have a guess that I'm hoping.
I have a. Here's the thing, Tyler.
Okay.
So if I say a team, and I've now expressed confidence, and then he says the team second, do we both get the point?
Well, I like to do it as like whoever answers first, as in like ask the question and you buzz in and say the answer.
I'm buzzing in.
If you guys want to both give your picks at like the same time.
Well, I'll go first because I'm least you know the answer.
Yeah, I know.
He knows it.
All right.
I am not sure.
All right, and if you both get it right, I'll give you both the point.
Okay.
But if Wes gets it right and you get it wrong, Wes gets just the point.
How about just to prove I knew it before he said it?
You're gonna text it to me?
I'm gonna text the answer to Tyler.
I don't think that's necessary. I trust you.
How about?
But that's fine.
But I just want to make sure that
trying to look at where Wes's thumbs are going on the phone.
See if you can hear the clacking on the keyboard.
That's right.
To figure out what the letters are.
All right.
NC State.
NC State. Yes,
that is correct.
Okay. I was lower confident, but I literally looked at that and I had a feeling. I was like, all right, they got one win. And I was like, gosh, I'd forgotten overnight.
So that was the first ever game at what is now known as Carter Finley Stadium.
See, I thought Tyler was going to say, what did South Carolina's one win of the season ruin for the opponent?
I felt like that might have been a little too complicated. I did think about it, though. But here's an opportunity to earn some bonus points.
Okay.
South Carolina scored 4 touchdowns in this game. Final score was 31-21. Got to Price is Right this, so you got to guess a number. What was the average yardage of their touchdowns scored in that game?
Gee.
Again, all you got to do is throw a number out there. Closest one gets half a point.
Average yardage of each touchdown scored.
So of all the 4 touchdowns, when you add up the yardage, divide by 4, what does that come out to?
Oh. now I might be convoluting this with another season. Wasn't there either a long interception or kick return for a touchdown in that game?
Yes.
There was.
Okay.
So that can inflate the numbers.
But also, I read the news story on this game.
Wow, you went deep.
I would say it. You see a little clipping there at the bottom of Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but here's the thing, y'all. We're just going to talk this one through. I know we're against each other. So there was a 98-yard interception return.
Do you know who did that?
Yep.
Some guy named Bryant.
Bobby Bryant.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a 98-yard interception return.
Mm-hmm.
But the other scores were also off of turnovers, which would have been shorter play. Like, I think there were some turnovers, like, in NC State territory.
Yes.
Too, that would have. So you think it's going to be a big number because the 98, but
Carolina got 3 interceptions in this game. By the way, NC State only passed for 11 yards, by the way. Ran for 200, passed for 11.
Yeah, I'm going to write the Telegram Sports editor because it says that NC State had more yards rushing and passing than South Carolina and still lost the game. But that is obviously not true.
According to the little stat box there, that is not the case.
Yeah, that's not the case at all.
Can you imagine? Hey, guys. In 1966, just letting you know.
Just letting you know.
If you want to update this.
Can you edit this?
If the person that wrote this is still with us, then yes, please correct it.
So, I don't know, man.
Like, can I pull out my calculator? I'm not Googling.
I feel like that's cheating.
Really?
You just have to throw out a number.
All right.
Again, you have a 100-yard field, so anything less than,
thank you. We do know that.
Anything less than 98, because it was a 98-yard kickoff return. So the average of the 4 touchdowns, yardage-wise, was what?
50 yards.
Okay. Chris?
I'm trying to do math in my head since you wouldn't let me use a calculator. 38 yards.
38. Ooh. Chris is going to win because the average
No way, dude.
43.75. Just barely. So you had a 98-yard kickoff return, a 43-yard touchdown run, and passes of 24 and 10 yards.
Yeah. I had a 10-yarder in my formula in my head.
So all those
Are
were
you
off
sure
of
that maths?
That maths?
Okay.
Would you like me to do it right now? Just
No, that's terrible radio. We do it during the break.
Okay, but yes. So you get half a point for the day at least. So you've at least closed the gap down to 2.
Okay. Got a lot of work left to do.
I'm glad you guys are finally studying for this, though.
I did kind of enjoy reading through this
Now, I don't know if
game story.
I don't know if I've ever asked you this, Chris. Like, were you the hard studier back in school? Like,
No.
Wes and I were kind of like, hey, we know what we know. When the test shows up, we just whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I didn't do much of that. It was fine, like, early in my academic career. And then as we got,
I think when
I always had good grades, but I was not a big studier.
I think when you fail that first thing in college, that's kind of the slap of reality that we all need. Like, oh, I probably got to do a little bit more here if I want to
Not elementary
actually
school anymore.
get a diploma when this is all said and done.
I'm just waiting for a time where maybe these questions get easier, but I have a feeling they're not going to.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, we both got the question today, but
You
only
did.
because we studied.
You did. Well, again, if you study, again, I'm not gonna give you the study guide and tell you it's the same answers on the test. But if you do your reading the night before, then I feel like you'll have a pretty good shot at this.
Yeah.
So
It's fair.
9.5 to 7.5 our current tally as of right now, and again, still 65 more days to go till kickoff gets here. Last night, big for Colin Murray Boyles in the NBA draft. We'll dive into that coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, rolls along on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. Reminder, myself and Terry Ford going to be out at the Nest at 1331 Gadsden Street coming up at the top of the hour for the halftime show today from 12 until 3. Come by and hang out with us. You can get there for your chance to win some Gamecock football tickets as well. Again, noon to 3 for the halftime show at the Nest at 1331 Gadsden Street. Before we get in the NBA draft, I did check my math, and I was correct. The average length of those touchdowns in that game against Cincy State in 1966 was 43.75.
I checked it too.
So
you're right.
Chris does get the half point.
All right, I'm going to check myself too. 98-yard punt return. So they threw 3 interceptions and then also gave up a 98-yard punt return. I said 98-yard interception return. Also, you know how phrasing changes over the years?
Sure.
Have y'all ever, like, what does this mean? South Carolina, I'm going to condense it, unleashed a barrage of long-distance football home runs to defeat NC State in a point-free 31-21 scoring spectacular. What is point-free?
Yeah.
So point is by itself, and then point-free.
Yeah, never heard that one before.
That one broke my brain.
Didn't come up in journalism class.
But did it come up in football class? Like what? I've never heard.
I never heard of that one. Perhaps it was a phrase at the time in the 60s that is now subsided. I don't know.
Even the old-timey phrases make sense, though. That just doesn't make sense.
Point-free. I don't know.
I don't know either. Either way, let's get to the NBA draft. Last night at
I was like, shut up.
pick number 9. Let's see here. This happened.
With the 9th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Toronto Raptors select Colin Murray Boyles from the University of South Carolina.
You see the emotions there. His girlfriend right next to him in the red dress. That is Chloe Kitts, 6'2" starting forward at South Carolina, the SEC Tournament MVP, and with his family as well.
CMB heads north of the border to the Toronto Raptors with that 9th pick. Becomes the first ever Gamecock selected in the draft, the lottery portion of the draft, and even went just a tick higher than most of the mock drafts had him. I saw some as high as 10th. I didn't see any that I remember at least having him break into anything 9th or above. So a very cool moment there. Obviously great for the program, great for CMB, and unfortunately, I don't know how visible Raptors games are going to be on the average television, window night, but whenever they're on, you'll have reason to watch.
Yes, you will. Awesome for CMB. Very cool. I mean, Chloe being, as you would expect, but Chloe being right there for the whole thing as well. The Gamecock basketball power couple.
Yep, which he did hug mom first, which smart move. We've seen when you hug girlfriend first, sometimes that goes sideways. So yeah, he did the right thing.
Veteran move, but I feel like the CMB Chloe ship kind of went national, went NBA Twitter wide. I feel like, but I mean, obviously, awesome moment for him and well deserved. Worked incredibly hard for it, and it's a long way away. Toronto is, but man, you go top 10, like that is life changing.
There was, and I can't properly credit it, but I will credit my kids for telling me they were getting upset that Colin had not gone yet. Okay, I was like, girls, it's pretty early, like you're going top 10.
What do you mean this Cooper Flag guy's number one?
They were like, who's supposed to go number 1? I was like, Cooper Flag from Duke. They're like, oh, Duke's really good. I was like, yeah, they're good. And then from like I think they started watching it like pick 3, and every time they'd hear they were like cartwheeling or whatever they do.
Yeah.
And when they'd hear the ding, 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 they would come running up to, I had it on the computer actually, and every time they were like, this is rigged, they're all mad.
They're already putting on the sinful hats. I like it.
But they told me that because they saw on the ticker, somebody had mocked Colin to go at like, I think 6 or 7.
Okay.
Something like that. And so when we got past pick 7, Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma, great player, they're like, what's the deal? He hadn't gone yet. And I had to explain the whole mock draft concept. But they were happy, and they love Chloe. They wanted to see what Chloe was wearing and all those things. So good time for my girls.
I like that your children are getting in on the mock draft experience.
mock draft
and getting angry when
experience.
people don't go where they think they should go.
What exactly?
Rigged.
It's rigged.
Yeah.
Man. Did you hear the person shout out Dallas is rigged before Silver took the stage to start the thing?
Yes.
I didn't. I was in the dark, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but somebody was like, you trade Luka and then you get the number 1 overall pick, rigged. Which, I mean, yeah, you know.
you
might not
buying
be
in,
wrong.
Tyler? You buying in?
I don't know.
You sound
I don't
a
know.
little.
You know, the NBA likes to make sure their big city teams have the right pieces. Could be possible. Just saying. But either way, good for CMB.
You know,
Right.
Toronto is. I'm putting it in here. Toronto's only 13 hours away driving.
Isn't Toronto's is closer to here than like Detroit is, right? Isn't that thing
Well,
that
that's
like
the one-
Toronto's more like south than Toronto is? Or
Well,
Detroit is?
So I went to Detroit. When was that? Early this year. I don't know. So you can look across. Like if you're in a hotel in Detroit, like you literally look across the river and you're looking at Canada. I mean,
Sure.
you can see the. But I don't know about Toronto. I mean, I think that's closer than Detroit. But you're in a different country.
Looking at the
It'll
map
be a little
here.
different. It's gonna be a little different. But he won't be in the same town as Chloe. Obviously, he'll be a little ways away. Be away from the family.
No, okay. Toronto is a little more north than Detroit is, but like it's pretty like from like a map standpoint, it's kind of on the same level as like New Hampshire and Vermont in terms of like latitude or longitude, I guess. So it's not as far as it sounds.
But Colin was like he was a hot commodity last night. Y'all saw the reports came out immediately that some teams had really talked to Toronto about trading up for this spot, presumably to grab him. Now, maybe some teams are like, we want that spot because we want to take Colin Coward, Cedric Coward, maybe, or somebody else. But the point is, like, people coveted that spot where Colin went, and presumably him in some cases.
And Toronto's big thing in this draft was wanting to build their front court, which, you know, they obviously do that with bringing Colin in. They're a relatively young team, all things considered, which is good. And obviously they're a team not that far removed from a championship themselves, though these past couple of years haven't gone great. But he's going to a situation where you feel like they are going to try and win, right? It's not like he's going to go to the Hornets or something like that. It's like, okay, we'll have fun, you know, toiling at the bottom of the league for the next 5 to 10 years.
Hornets catching a stray.
They deserve it.
They do deserve it.
Disrespect intended?
Yes, full
Okay.
disrespect.
All right.
The one Hornets fan can come in here and be mad at me if he wants to.
Disrespectfully. By the way, have we talked any about the Lamont Paris press conference?
We didn't on this show. We have on other shows.
Topics for you there, Tyler.
Yeah. Would you like to add that to the queue?
Yeah,
Wes?
hey, listen,
Official?
I asked you guys what you want to talk about.
I know, I'm
Sometimes you don't
telling
get
you.
back to me.
I'm telling you. Can we talk about that later?
On the
We
fly.
can, you know what? Actually, do you want to hear what Lamont Paris had to say in reference to what teams are getting with CMB?
I do.
All right, if you give me a second to find it. Here it is. Lamont Paris the other day talking about what pro teams get with CMB.
You know, I just had a conversation to potentially be in a position to trade up to where they would be in his draft window, and that I looked really smart because that just happened. And so, you know, they may or may not take him, but the conversations I had was about who he is as a player, and this guy's going to owe me a percentage of his salary when this is all said and done, if you could hear these conversations that I have with these guys. But the beauty of that is that I tell them the truth, and I think that's why they continue to call me, because they know I'm not in the business of gaslighting at all. I want them to trust what I say, and so, but I tell them the truth. And what I continue to tell all these teams is that, you know, it's always you're drafting guys on ceiling, and you know and a lot of times they do. They want to draft a guy that maybe one day, even if he's a higher risk guy, maybe one day he's got a chance to be MVP of the league. You know, you're looking for that. But I recommend to these guys to draft Colin. Not on his ceiling, but draft him on his floor, because his floor is, it would surprise me. Now, this is saying a lot, because I watched last night's game, and Hartenstein was at the free throw line, and they said in the G League, he was in the G League finals, and he made 8 threes and had a triple-double and was the MVP. And then he's got a small offensive role for Oklahoma City. Big role in general, but a small offensive role. So I say this with a grain of salt or three, but like once Colin learns, and I don't profess to know the NBA like that, but once Colin learns how to move in the NBA, what the rules are, the rule changes, there are different rules. Once he learns those things, I think any team that gets him is going to be shocked at how viable an option he would be to actually put in a game.
And there's obviously going to be a development aspect of that, and maybe comes off the bench and all that kind of stuff. Obviously needs to continue to develop that three-point shot, which is something that the Raptors as a whole are not great at doing. So we'll see how he comes along with that. But again, plays defense well, does all the small fundamental things really, really well, and again, from his time here in 2 years, we never heard any kind of issue when it came to locker rooms or dealing with teammates. Like, he seems like a guy, when you get in an organization, is going to be there and ready to go to learn and develop and do what you need him to do.
And he is happy to be there.
Yes, he is. We'll get to that in a moment. Don't worry.
He's happy to be there. But, yeah, I mean, I go back to what we talked about yesterday, guys, the fact that, I mean, do you call it a meaningless season at that point? Like, He was at the end of what had become a meaningless season, SEC tournament. There was just really not a whole heck of a lot to play for anymore, and my man is out there bruised and bloodied, giving it his all for himself, his teammates, and his school. So that tells you all you need to know, I think, about CMB, in addition to the ability, the talent. I think this guy is maybe one of the best, especially for like a 9-point guard, one of the best passers in South Carolina men's basketball history. So I think that goes a long way, I think, with your coaches. It goes a long way with your teammates, too, that you know how to distribute the basketball to them, and put them in position to shine and to score. So, I mean, I think the phrase or the word fit gets misused or overused a lot, but I think Colin's one of those guys that's going to fit about anywhere.
Yeah, and he's got, I mean, as Lamont Paris alluded to there, like the floor is high, but the ceiling is also substantial. We were talking yesterday, what if Colin goes and adds, and it doesn't even have to be next year, it can just be throughout the course of his career, what if he adds a three-point shot, as he continues to develop, which we haven't really seen, but we think he has the ability to do. They're talking on the draft broadcast last night about some player comparisons, and one that's been brought up with him a lot is Draymond Green. Now, I think you will avoid the negative aspects of Draymond Green.
Yep.
Getting texts every game and things like that. Colin doesn't really operate that way, but is he similar in skill set? Yes. And somebody last night made the point, like, if he can be half to three-quarters of what Draymond Green has been, because he's been an impact player for years in the NBA. He's been on championship teams, on contenders year after year. That's a good pick for Toronto, and I agree. But I think Colin also has, a substantial upside.
He kind of had a bit of a viral moment last night that people certainly got up and ran with. We'll hear what Colin Murray-Bowles had to say about what happened the moment he got drafted. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday on the Game.
WTF for sure. WTF all the way till my name got called. Man, it was crazy. But geez, I almost shed a tear. But I try to keep my composure. But you know, it's surreal. Like I dreamed of this when I was a kid. Like you never know you're gonna be there till you're there for real. So it's like it's crazy.
Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris with you on your Thursday. That was Colin Murray Boyles last night after getting drafted, coming to the defense of his moment. The cameras caught of him saying a word we're not allowed to say on the radio in reference to hearing his name called. Now, as Twitter will do, Twitter ran with this, that this guy doesn't want to go to Toronto and play for the Raptors, so he said this word out of frustration, but he's positioning it. It was out of excitement, and whether that's true or not, he gave the correct answer after the fact, because you don't want to start off on the foot of your team. You're like, yeah, didn't really want to go there, so I was upset about it.
But I'm here. Yeah, Twitter's going to Twitter, right? And then when Barstool grabs your tweet, then
it's over with at that point.
Yeah, it's going pretty viral at that point. But yeah, I mean, he had a smile on his face after he said it too. Like he had a little grin. I don't know. I think that's probably got to be one of the most emotional moments for your entire life if you're an athlete, is getting selected, in the draft for whatever sport it is that you play. So just knowing what we know about CMB here locally, I think we're willing to give him a little benefit of the doubt. It's kind of funny regardless, but.
No, it's funny. Yeah, you can have some fun with it, but.
Well, the Raptors, even tweeted at Phil, look, he's happy, see? He's glad to be here.
We promise. No, I mean, as soon as I saw that, and I was like, oh, people are going to have fun with that.
Yeah.
You could tell, but my first thought, that was my first thought. My second was I think he's giving a legitimately wow, I just got drafted.
Yeah.
You know it's going to happen.
Sure.
You got invited to the draft. You're going in the first round unless something crazy happens. But then when you actually hear your name called by the NBA commissioner, you're like, okay, I just got drafted. I don't know what I would say.
It's a surreal moment.
Yeah.
Wow, This is really happening. I'm going to go up there and put on a hat and shake Adam Silver's hand. I buy what he's saying. But again, the internet's going to internet at the end of the day.
It always does.
As they tend to do.
Now, here's a question, because when you look at WNBA drafts for next year, Chloe Kitts is projected to be around the 10th pick. Could she possibly go higher and have the draft bragging rights about a year from now?
I think she could. I mean, if you look at the improvement that Chloe Kitts has made during her time at South Carolina so far, and this is without looking at I don't know what the mock drafts and all that stuff say, but her continued development as an offensive player, the footwork, the ability to score. I mean, she took over some games, especially late last season. I mean, I could see it.
WNBA also adding a franchise to Toronto beginning in 2026. Got the Toronto Tempo getting in the mix.
Toronto Tempo.
The Toronto Tempo. So just saying, well, she ended up,
That would be pretty cool.
A little reuniting. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, that could happen. As Terry interrupts Tyler in there.
Yeah, I was getting an alert of our live coming up here in a few minutes, and a power situation down the street that we're working through. So, fun stuff. Live radio.
I've been there.
Yes, we have.
We were just talking about Chloe could actually get drafted by Toronto as well.
She could. That is possible. The expansion team, I don't know if that's what anybody's going to think about when it comes to drafting her, but that'd be nice and convenient. I did pose a question earlier to Jack, okay, when these two want to spend time together, is she flying there? Is he flying here? How are we going to – because now you're crossing borders too, so customs and all that kind of stuff. What's the more feasible option here?
I mean, they'll figure it out, but I got to think the NBA player is flying down here. Plus, his family lives here too.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Don Staley weighed in on that actually on social. It's like, when you sneak off now, you got to go to Toronto.
Yeah, that's not exactly a quick down and back.
No.
It is kind of fun. I feel like at first there was a little bit of hesitation, at least certainly by me and like probably other people in the media. Like, all right, this is like a private thing between the two of them. It makes you feel a little uncomfortable to talk about it, but they have like fully gone completely public with this, like power couple. It's talked about on SEC Network. It was talked about during the draft yesterday. Like, this is a full-on public power couple at this point.
Yeah. Did you see her put the hat on and it quickly fall off?
She also she's had fun with this too. She posted a photo this morning, like, of her with that big hat just like propped up on her head. So you gotta have fun with it.
It's the thought that counts.
Have fun with
I
it.
think even the one that he put on didn't fit properly when he went on the stage either. So
nice outfit too. But I like watching our guy Trey Johnson from Texas. He went with the shorts.
Yes, I did see
suit.
that.
I would like to normalize that behavior.
You would be a shorts with suit kind of person?
Well, just shorts in general.
Okay.
You know, like rather than a suit.
Now, if you tried to dress like that, what would your wife say? She'd be like, no, wear something else?
She would tell me you can't wear shorts with a suit.
I feel like Trey
I wonder what
Johnson
our
did.
guy Brent Skinner would say about
He would not be for it.
very much against it.
Did he do CMB's suit, I wonder?
I don't know.
We'll need to find that out. Any other surprises for y'all in the first round? I mean, I'm not a draft recruit, Nick. I did notice, so Rutgers had, what did they have? 2 first-round picks.
Yep.
Actually, 2 top 5 picks. Rutgers was 15 and 17 last year.
Yes.
Both those guys were freshmen, but still, that was a little odd. I don't know much about, I was saying this earlier to Wes during the break. If anybody's looking for a baby name, Yannick Conan Niederhauser. I don't know anything about him, pick 30, but some guys that we've all seen, like Liam McNeely from UConn, Asa Newell from Georgia, Walter Clayton Jr., who tormented everybody in the SEC. Like, there's some dudes that went in the first round.
So going back to the Rutgers thing, one of those guys is Ace Bailey, who caused quite a bit of stir leading up to the draft by trying to control where he was going to go, canceling workouts with teams, and wanting to go to a place that he said he felt like he had the best opportunity to become a solo star there. Utah was apparently one of the teams that he did not want to go to, who proceeded to pick him with the 5th pick. So, interesting to see how that works out.
Then there still have to be some, like, gratitude. I'm a millionaire multi-times over.
Yeah.
Thank you for picking me.
I'll go anywhere in the U.S. If you're going to tell me to go play ball and you're going to make me a multimillionaire, I don't know. I don't want to judge the guy, man. And I mean, maybe he had a lot of emotions going on. Maybe like, we're not in his head, but it'd be hard for me to be upset about that happening, no matter where you're sending me.
Yeah, again, it's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. We'll see how he fares out there in Utah, but that seemed to be one of the teams that he was not as interested in going towards because he doesn't feel like he has the path to solo stardom, which it's really for the second contract, right? Like, if you can be the guy on a team for a couple of years, you can get a better second deal as opposed to being a role player or something along those lines.
Hey, go be great, though, man. If you're great, all that other stuff will find you. Like, I know it might be not as easy. You don't have as good of a setup. You're not in a major market, whatever. Go be great. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you would think. But we'll see what happens. But again, congratulations to CMB. Obviously great for South Carolina men's basketball to have a guy go in the lottery for the first time ever. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. A little bit of Lenore Sellers talking on the Zach Gelb show the other day as well. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game.
Yeah, I didn't really stress over it too much. I think I would have been more stressful, honestly, if I would have left, because then you got to worry about starting over, meeting new people, building those new relationships. So I didn't really look that deep into it. It was just like we were still working out. We had spring ball and all that. So I was really focused on that.
Welcome back in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. A couple more minutes to go here. That was Lenora Sellers on the Zach Gelb Show the other day on the Infinity Sports Network. Was posed the question about the $8 million offer he had to leave South Carolina and go play somewhere else this past offseason. And, that was the answer that he gave in reference to that question. And, when you kind of look back things over the past week with Diego Pavia on Busting with the Boys, Thomas Castellanos giving his interview to Pete Nakos, I guess it is nice to have a quarterback that is not going to stir up any controversy when it comes to answers that he gives on these public platforms, because Sellers does not say a whole lot and certainly does not get himself in trouble with those kind of things either.
Yeah, that's by design. That's who he is too. I think all those guys are maybe just showing you who they are. For Lenoris, that's actually something he has talked about. He's worked on, being a more vocal guy. I think in just all aspects of playing quarterback, but you don't necessarily care or want for that to trickle over into media settings like that. And Lenoris will give you some good stuff. Like, he will give you some insight, but he's not going to do anything that's going to ruffle feathers about things. And it's got to be, I don't know, I could see that just being a little bit uncomfortable to talk about. If your seller's like, hey, man, you turned down $8 million. Like, what do you even say to that?
He tried to get him to name the school too, and he was like, no, we're not doing that. So, credit for trying, but I didn't think you were going to pry that out of Sellers.
No, he definitely wouldn't say that. Sellers is funny because, he will say things, like, you're right, Wes, he will give you some stuff. He's not going to give you what school tried to poach you. He'll say some things, and they'll be hilarious and, not even meaning to be. I remember after the 2023 season when he threw that touchdown against Furman, and he's like, they're like, what'd you see? And he's like, this, that. He's like, so I just went to the touchdown play. He called it the touchdown play. I came back to the touchdown.
Let's throw a 50-yard touchdown.
It's like that's the options in his mind. He's like, do I run it, dump it off? Do I throw a 50-yard touchdown? I'll pick the touchdown.
I thought his account of being afraid of thunder on the little SEC special they did on South Carolina the other week, thought that was pretty funny too. So he can be funny, in situations when he needs to be. But again, he's all business when it comes to, especially a national interview like that, when it comes to talking about this upcoming season.
By the way, I did bump into his brother, Jaden, and I asked him if he just made that up, because I had it in my own headcanon that it would be hilarious if he just, I don't even tell him Lenoris is scared of thunder. And he laughed. He said, no, he's like, I don't know if it's true anymore. He's like, but it definitely was true.
Oh, okay. What was he, like 7 years old?
He did not give me.
We need clarity.
Yeah, that is. If he is scared of thunder and storms, then yes, last night was not good for him.
No, not at all. Yeah, I was saying last night would have been terrifying for him if that's the case. Real quick before we get out of here, just learning this a few minutes ago, South Carolina comes in 23rd in the Learfield Directors Cup standings, which were released a little bit earlier on today. This accounts for all sports over the course of the entire season. Obviously, a great year for South Carolina men's basketball, obviously softball, football, some very strong candidates that obviously helped South Carolina propel themselves into a top 25 finish there.
Fifth highest all time for them, I think, maybe.
That's right.
Yeah, I was just thinking, by the way, even Superman has his kryptonite, so maybe the one thing that stops Lenoris is thunder.
So are opposing stadiums going to start typing in thunder noises on key drives?
That's the final kind of thing he has to overcome.
Yeah.
On the way to stardom.
Yeah, then he very dramatically overcomes it.
Yeah.
Reaches full potential.
No, he leads a game-winning drive in a thunderstorm.
In the thunder.
Yes.
Be like, I'm over my fear now.
Here for it. But yeah, the Directors Cup, that's what you want. You want most of your programs to be competing and in that top 25. And if you're in the top 25 on a yearly basis, then you're going to have years where you can break through
Fourth year in a row is the highest ranked SEC school, I think is what this is supposed to say. Is that right?
No, SC school.
Okay, it is supposed to be SC. Got you.
That's a direct shot at Clemson.
Yes.
Yes.
Which we're here for.
Yes, that's better.
That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Myself, Terry Ford, will be out at the nest at some point, working through some technical issues. That's coming up next for the halftime show here on the game.
I was telling Wes at the beginning of the show, super hungry. And so, of course, if you're hungry like me, you need a lunch recommendation. If you already got plans, want dinner, need a catering option, go check out our friends over at Firehouse Subs. 15 locations and growing all around the Midlands, and they've got a new sub. Y'all probably heard us talk about it. Limited time only, so make sure you go check it out now at a location nearest you. It's the new Smokin' Triple Stack. It's back. It's been here before. It's back for a limited time. Slow smoked beef brisket, smoked turkey breast, and Virginia honey ham. It's got slaw. It's got barbecue sauce, melted cheddar mayo, all, of course, on the Firehouse toasted sub roll. Plus, they have the Carolina Gold option. If you want a different type of barbecue sauce, you can check that out. They're both delicious. Hot and ready for you at Firehouse Subs. Use the Rapid Rescue to go. FirehouseSubs.com. Download the Firehouse Subs app. Earn yourself some rewards toward future purchases. 15 locations all around the Midlands. Firehouse Subs.